Well, as you mentioned, I was born and raised on the farm, and this old country boy graduated from high school in 41 after missing a couple of years, and it was in the fall of 41. He was busy running his traps and trying to catch the furs when December 7th came along, and we heard the terrible news of Hawaii being bombed by the Japanese. It didn't take long. I knew that they wanted young men to volunteer. If they didn't volunteer, they would be asked to come in. So along in June, this old farm boy just headed for the nearest recruiting station of Fort Snelling, Minnesota, outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and enlisted. A few days later, I found myself in Camp Rucker near Dothan, Alabama, in the infantry. I had wanted to get in the Army Air Corps, but this was what they gave me. So I took my infantry training, did my best. I was working with a 60 millimeter mortar squad. I earned my 3 stripes in about 3 months and was selected, as were several others, to go on cadre to help train a newly activated 87th Division, the Acorn Division, over in Camp McCain, Mississippi. So we went there in November, I think it was, November of 42. And while waiting for the new troop members to come in and be indoctrinated and begin their training, we had some time. And just the cadre staff went on maneuvers down along the Sabine River for about a week. And this southern climate proposed to be so warm, I nearly froze to death in those cold, wet weather. Anyway, we got back and started training the new troops as they came in. And along about June of 43, they lowered the requirements where I no longer had to have college to get into the U.S. Army Air Corps. I could take the GED test, and if I passed it and their physical, I was in, which I did and succeeded. Well, I was selected then to go on down to Biloxi, Mississippi to get basic training. There were quite a few of us in that group that had already had basic training, so they weren't going to redo it. They just sent those of us who had had the basic training to College Training Detachment up in Waukesha, Wisconsin, for further education, introduction to basic flying with some Taylor Cub flights and things like that, training in different aspects of the Air Force, knowing Morse code, silhouette identification of aircraft and things, for about 3 months. And then we went on out to Stockton, or to Oxnard, not to Oxnard, but to just south of Los Angeles for pre-flight training. And there it was more identification, more Morse code, more physical training, until finally they sent our flight group. We were in 44, label 44J, and we were sent to Oxnard for primary flight training. And Stearmans, many of them went to other places for the single wing flight trainers, but we had those old double wingers that ground loop very easily if you weren't careful. I think I did it one time during the whole time I was there, but they taught us how to do loops and fly on the back temporarily, upside down and so forth, all the basics of flying. From there, we moved on up to Stockton, California, to a twin-engine AT-17 for getting familiar with a heavier aircraft. And it was there at Stockton where I married my first wife, and she was with me in that while I continued the training there. My next stop was La Junta, Colorado, and we were one of the first classes to fly the B-25 in advanced training.